in the first movement, you're more classical. Could you sort of demonstrate for us a little bit about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what I can show you that would demonstrate that. There's a thing. That sort of thing. That's a usable performance of that. Or
you know, in a weird way, that almost reminds me a little bit of Gershwin.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing. I mean, I realized that it was some of it was
Gershwin could have written that for his F major piano picture.
Yeah, or that could have been in Rhapsody in Blue in the piano part, exactly.
And those old Whiteman orchestras, had banjo in it. So.
Right. So yeah, if it's classical, it's a banjo-y kind of classical. I'm trying to think.
It's American classical.
Then there's some other things. I don't know if this is really classical sounding, but there's an ostinato that goes like this. Maybe that's almost 12 tone. I don't know. I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
But it's not jazz, or it's not bluegrass, but it's got all those qualities kind of mixed in together. But if we're looking for classical, it's more like, I think there's things like that, sort of minuet-y little moves. Has a lot of slower music and it's darker and moodier, and a lot of that is happening in the strings and in the orchestra. But there is a slow theme. Like the romantic theme from the second movement, and the orchestra plays that as well. And there's some other themes and some other stuff that goes on in the second movement too. A lot of sort of what would you call it? Rippling kinds of moody. Using the banjo's sort of rolling potential. Things like that. Maybe it's a little Debussy-ish, or I have no idea really, but just sort of stuff that happened.
Or the third movement, the protagonist begins to discover its bluegrass roots.
Right. That could be said. Yeah.
How does this sound?
There's some actually.
What happens here?
There's things where the banjo starts to go into the 2/4 fast banjo kind of playing that you're sort of maybe waiting for, and there's patterns like this. Things like that. But then even later, it goes into even more full out. More of that kind of vernacular, but just for a short time. Just for a short time, and that's in G major, which is the banjo key. It takes till the end of the piece before we get to G major, and suddenly you're in home turf. So even something like what I just played is actually in G sharp minor, and when you play in G sharp minor in a G tuned banjo, you have a great tension between the G sharp and the G major, which is what creates that sound. G sharp and G major, G sharp minor and G major happening at the same time. But eventually we actually really get to G near the end of the piece.
Well, that's a very classical concept, a very you know, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven concept of trying to, the instrument, the tonality, trying to find its way home.
Right.
And everything before that is creating all that sort of dramatic tension.
Right. That's a piece of it. You know, I can't say that I did it like one of those guys would have done, but I definitely had that in mind, and I had other things trying to get me to G in the piece. Moves that are like, you know, if you have a big thing that goes G,
right.
but it never happens, or G, but it doesn't happen. Right. And there's the big orchestra moves, bum 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 bum, and then it goes to another part. And that happens several times through the piece. So it's like G, but denied, denied, and then finally G, and we're there. Okay. So that is a real classical move.